Hey there, hope you're doing good. If you're a startup, you should have only one front end code base as long as possible. And here, when I say front end, I include both the web front end and the mobile. Many companies have two different code bases. Typically, they have a web and mobile. Or sometimes they have a separate iOS app and an Android app, separate code, separate team. You should avoid this as long as possible. As your company scales, there will eventually come a point when you need multiple code bases. For example, Gmail with a billion users can't make do with only one code base. And at that scale, it makes sense. But many early stage startups do this. Don't. Validate your product on only one platform. Reach product market fit. Then, as your company scales, you may add more. Why should you do this? One is it is a lot more effort. It's double the effort. Everything has to be built twice. And when you're talking about coordinating between the back end and the front end, now the back end has to coordinate with two front ends. The deployment process also changes. For example, apps that are distributed through the App Store, you don't control updates. So you have to do things in a certain way. Whereas if you have a front end, a web front end, you do control updates. So now you have to think about two ways of doing it. Hiring, you have to hire another team, which is a lot more effort. You can't, you have to do UX design twice. In case of desktop versus mobile, the difference is significant. In case of Android versus iOS, the difference is less significant, but it's still there. Android apps have to comply with Android look and feel guidelines to be native on the platform. Shouldn't be refugees from iPhone or vice versa. Because that's like a second rate Android app or a second rate iPhone app. Nobody wants to use that. So, hiring teams, coordinating, making sure they have the same features. Because some of the companies I work with, they have been unable to keep these in sync. So, they diverge, which is not a good user experience. Then you have UX inconsistencies. I'll give you a simple example. When I upload a video to YouTube, so all my videos have a description with a link to my consulting website. On the desktop, I have been able to configure it that way so it gets auto applied, this description, whenever I upload a video. But when I upload it on mobile, it doesn't get applied. So that's an inconsistency. So the point is, if you have two teams, there will be hundreds of such minor things. You can't keep track of every one of them. As another example, 1Password, the password manager, used to behave differently on different platforms. So it has different categories of things you can save. You can save passwords, you can save credit cards, etc. Now, if I go to the credit card section and then search, there are two ways the search can work. It can search only within the current section or it can search across all sections. Now, either way is fine, but earlier on mobile it would behave in one way, on desktop it would behave in another way. So it would always be confusing to use. I never knew how it would work, which is a bad UX. So when you have multiple code bases, they will never be in sync and the UX suffers. Or even entire features may not be available on one platform or the other. So these are the reasons why you should have only one front-end code base as long as possible. How do you do that? You have a few options. You can launch on iPhone only and build your app using the iOS framework, Apple's native framework in Swift. Or you can launch Android only and use the Android framework and Kotlin. Or you can use both iPhone and you can support both iPhone and Android using Flutter or React Native. There may be some price in UX quality or native features not being available. Pay the price. Stick with only one code base. Don't build separate iPhone and Android apps. Another way to ensure only one code base is to support desktop users alone. If you must support both mobile and desktop, you can build a PWA, Progressive Web App. So these are 5 ways in which you can continue running your startup with only one front-end code base for as long as possible. If you'd like me to help you on what technology to use, my consulting link is in the description, as I mentioned earlier. Thank you.